system to sit and wait 30 to 45 seconds before it begins to make a phone call? Within that time, the intruder could force your loved one to turn the system off, which means the monitoring station will never hear about it. At that point, what's their service really worth? Your wife or daughter is on their own. The call-out delay has crippled the effectiveness of the monitoring service. But the way they see it, it's made them a ton of money. How do I know they do this? 3 ways. First of all, I've dealt with some of the same manufacturers some of these big companies use, one of them being ITI. On 2 separate occasions, different regional sales reps from ITI told me whenever they make systems for one of the largest national mass marketers, it's always specified that a call-out delay be programmed into those systems. Another way I know, on a yearly basis, I attend manufacturer-sponsored classroom training. At a recent training where technicians were present from some of the largest mass marketing companies, the manufacturer's instructor told the whole class that at the request of that mass marketer, the manufacturer puts call-out delays into all their systems. Let me tell you a story. I got this old Volvo, almost 250,000 miles. I keep it because it refuses to die. It never breaks down. So I take care of it. There's a place called Viking Automotive in Chantilly that's about the best place around here I've found to take care of your Volvo. The owner's name is Dave, so every time I go there, there's a sticker on the door, protected by ADT security. I'm about to pay him $200 for a brake job, and I say, Dave, when are you going to let me do your security so I can make a few of these dollars back? And he says, hey, I've been using them for 10 years. They do my house too. So I say, well, long as you're happy. One day I get a call from Dave. He says, come on down, I want to talk to you about something. So I stop by. He says, I called my security company and told them I wanted a silent panic button. So if we have a holdup, my girl can press the button for the cops to come while she's giving the bad guy all my money. I said, well, first of all, I'm surprised they didn't put a holdup button in when they installed your system. That's a standard item on a retail store as far as I'm concerned. But hey, it's not a big deal. I'm sure they can handle it for you. He says, well, yeah, but they told me I got to upgrade my system and it's going to cost $650. I said, hey Dave, there's no reason they got to upgrade your whole system just to add a panic button. Then he says, that's not all. They keep raising my monitoring rate. It goes up almost every year. They got me up to over $50 a month now. I said, well Dave, that's about twice what I charge and our station's one of the best in the country. Let me see what you got. Dave's shop has 3 garage bays and he takes me into the first bay off the reception area. There on the back wall, just to the side of the workbench, is a 10-year-old all-in-one hardwired system. So I begin to explain to him, Dave, this system's really easy to defeat because it's out in the open and everything important is inside this keypad. Somebody could just, and he says, I know that, but this one can't be defeated that way. So I ask him, why not? He says, because it's in the back of the garage. They don't know where it is. So I ask, Dave, which one of your doors has the entry delay? Which door do you have to come in the morning? And he says, all my doors have entry delays. They all have entry delays? Dave, that's not good. According to him, they put delays on every possible entry point rather than just the one door he needed to come in and turn the system off. All the other doors should have been instant response without any delay. Why would they do that? The only reason I can think of would be to reduce the likelihood that his system would ever call their monitoring station. As I was explaining this, he kept insisting, yeah, but they still don't know where it is. I said, Dave, how long is your entry delay? How long do you have to get to this thing in the morning to turn it off before it goes into alarm? He said, it's pretty long because it takes a while to get back here, about 45 seconds, but they still don't know where it is. So I said, Dave, I only got one question left. During that 45 seconds, is this thing beeping or making any kind of noise? There's this long pause, and he says, yeah, as a matter of fact, it beeps pretty loud. So I said, Dave, you see where I'm going with this, don't you? This thing is making loud beeps for 45 seconds, leading them right to it. So it's not really hidden, is it? Let me ask you this. We just walked here from the front door. How long did it take us? He said, 15 or 20 seconds. I said, 20 seconds. Okay. If I was in a wheelchair, could I make it back here in 45 seconds? And Dave said, if you were in a wheelchair, you could easily make it back here in 45 seconds. I said, Dave, I'm looking at your workbench here, and I see a mini sledgehammer, a huge screwdriver, giant wrenches. He wouldn't even have to bring any tools with him. I could just pick up this hammer and smash it right now, couldn't I? Dave says, I never thought about that before. I said, Dave, Even if you happen to get the world's most incompetent burglar, and it takes him 45 seconds to find this thing, I know these companies often will put a call-out delay in their systems, so even after the 45-second entry delay, it might wait another 30 seconds before it starts to make a phone call. He said, "No, that's 45 seconds too." I said, "How do you know?" He said, "One time I set it off and I sat here and watched my phone to see how long it was before the light came on for that line, and it was 45 seconds. I said, "So if I understand you correctly, if anybody breaks in here and they can use any door, they're going to have 45 seconds of entry delay, then another 45 seconds of call-out delay before your system even starts to make a phone call. The phone call takes about 20 seconds, add another 10 to 15 seconds before the operator's terminal comes up, and your burglar now has over 2 minutes before anybody even knows there's a problem here. I wouldn't pay $5 a month for that, and you're paying over $50? So he says, "Okay, Lenny, what can you do for me?" We ended up replacing his main panel, installing a new keypad, adding a motion sensor to his reception area, and a silent hold-up button by the cash register. He now has only one door with an entry delay. The keypad's right inside that door, making it easy to open up and close without a long delay. The brain's hidden in a secure area. There's no call-out delay in his system. He's paying about half what he said he was paying him for monitoring. And we did all this for about the same price they had quoted him for just the panic button. Sometimes things are just cheaper at the front end. Once you're locked in, it can get pretty expensive. A couple of issues were raised in that story. First of all, you definitely do not want a call-out delay in your system. As soon as you hear the siren, it should be calling the monitoring station. That's what you're paying them for. Second, Dave mentioned that they were raising his monitoring rates every year. Let's talk a minute about monitoring rates. There's a lot of games played here you ought to know about. Some companies will offer you a lower rate to get you to sign their contract, and then raise your rate little by little every year or two, like what happened with Dave. Another trick is to quote you a lower price for monitoring, and then after you've signed the contract say, "Oh, did you want your fire sensors monitored? That's $5 a month. Did you want your panic buttons activated? That's $2 a month." Getting the idea? If they start playing these games, I'd show them the door. Question number 13. Do you put call-out delays in your systems? Question number 14. How many increases have you had in your monitoring rates over the last 15 years, and what's been the total amount of increase during that time? There's one other thing with regard to monitoring service. It's something called automatic weekly test signals. Let's say you set your system off accidentally 3 or 4 times a year. We don't see that as a bad thing. For one thing, it lets us know you're using your system. For another thing, even though it's unintentional, it is a good test. When you see that the monitoring station responds promptly and professionally, you're reassured and reminded they're really earning their money. But let's say you've gone 9 or 10 months and you haven't set off any alarms. At this point, you're kind of taking it on faith that if there's a real emergency, your system's going to be able to do 3 things. 1, get a dial tone. 2, dial out over that dial tone. And 3, communicate clearly with the equipment at the other end of the line. But you don't have to take it on faith that you're still really being monitored. Just about every security system made has a feature which has to be turned on by the dealer, called automatic weekly test signals. Once this is turned on, your system will automatically call the monitoring station every week and log in a test signal with their computer. Their computer is set up to watch for that signal from your system every week, and if it doesn't come in at its programmed time, they can notify you, letting you know your system didn't check in. By actively testing your system's ability to communicate with the monitoring station every week, this gives you the assurance you're really receiving the service you're paying for. I could easily give you, without exaggerating, at least 40 real stories of my own customers that have convinced me how important it is to have this feature turned on. I'll give you just one to make the point. Jack is a customer of ours in Baltimore. A few summers ago during a thunderstorm, Jack's phones went out. He called the phone company and they came out the next day and got his phones working again. Of course, we're unaware any of this happened. But about 5 or 6 days later, we get a fax from the monitoring station telling us Jack's system didn't check in the night before. So I called him up. "Jack, we might not have a problem, but I need your help. They know we're testing, so don't worry, we're not going to send the cops. What I want you to do is set off a few alarms. I want to make sure the monitoring station's getting everything." So Jack sets off a few alarms. I check with the monitoring station. They didn't get anything. I call him back. Jack, we have a problem. I need to check your system. You going to be home tomorrow? The next morning, I'm at his panel checking the voltage at his phone terminals, and it's 0. I said, Jack, I don't think there's anything wrong with your system, but there's no dial tone here. Your system has to have a dial tone to be able to call the monitoring station. Now, I know it was able to call him a week ago. What happened in the last week? Have you had any phone work done? Then he told me what happened. It turns out the phone company had disconnected his security system from the phone line. I found where it was cut, fixed it, and he's back in business. But here's the point. If Jack didn't have the automatic weekly test signals turned on in his system, he could still be sitting there today with a security system that can't make a phone call, and he's paying his monitoring bill like a good guy every 3 months. I can't tell you how many times over the years I've taken over servicing a system that was installed by another company, only to find that the system could not make phone calls, but the customer had continued making their monitoring payments anyway because they were clueless. We've seen at least 30 cases where after our customer had phone work done, their security system no longer had a dial tone. Every system should have this feature turned on as a standard service. Why won't mass marketing companies do this? Think about it. If they've already done everything they can think of to prevent your system from ever calling them, like putting entry delays on all Dave's doors and using call-out delays, why would they now want to switch on a feature that forces your system to call them 52 times a year? That defeats the whole purpose of what they were trying to accomplish in the first place: maximize profits by minimizing phone traffic. Question number 15. Does your standard monitoring service include automatic weekly test signals? Will you notify me if they don't get the signal? The monitoring service is what really makes your system effective, since it's your link to the outside world, to people who can help. But remember, you're the customer. You should only have to pay for the equipment and service you want. Don't let anybody force you to do anything. You should have the choice, not only of whether your system is monitored or not, but also by whom it'll be monitored. Most companies insist not only that the system be monitored, but that it must be monitored by them. Otherwise, they won't install the system. What would you think of a new car dealer that refused to sell you a car unless you agreed to always bring it to them for service? You're holding the purse strings here. That should make you the boss. The business is supposed to serve the customer, but a lot of security companies have that backwards. Question number 16. Is a monitoring contract required when I purchase a security system from your company? Question number 17. Does it have to be monitored by your company, or can I choose another company to monitor it? Another area to be careful is, what does the monitoring contract say? Most companies will have a 3 or 5 year term for monitoring service. The question is, what if you sign a 5-year agreement and then sell your house and move to California after the first year? You're out of the contract, right? Wrong. Most companies are going to demand payment for the other 4 years, even though you don't even live in the house or have the system. I know that seems crazy, but that's pretty standard in this industry. I've had so many people tell me stories of how they had to pay off their contract. One man came by our booth at the home show and told me how when he lived in New Jersey, he got a system installed by Brinks and then moved a year later because his job transferred him to Texas. He had a 3-year contract with them. He said they tracked him down in Texas and demanded payment of the other 2 years. As I was typing the script for this CD, I got a call from a guy in Ashburn, Virginia, who just moved into a new home. He had a system installed by Guardian in his previous home and moved out 11 months before his contract was up. He told me they were insisting he was obligated to pay them for those 11 months. I was holding Guardian's contract in my hand as I was talking to him. I read it to him. Quote, "The customer's obligations continue even if the customer sells or leaves the premises." He was pretty upset about it, but he probably still ended up using them again for his new house anyway. Why? Nobody likes to throw money away. If he has to pay for those 11 months, he could feel he may as well get the service by having their system at his new house. He'll sign a new contract, and the whole process starts over again. Who's in control here? The customer or the security company? So here's something to insist on in your contract: an automatic move-out release. If you leave that house and security system behind, even a month from now, be sure you have no further obligation to the security company. Question number 18. Am I automatically released from your contract if I move?